Hello.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing, guys?
Welcome back to the Hot Take Table. I'm Dylan.
I'm Raph.
And do you want to start us off? We're talking about Zelda.
Yeah, I think today's the first time that we're recording that. I'm gonna come in as the aggressor, and I'm gonna say something that may hurt some people because I think that this is generally believed to be like a modern beloved classic. But I'm just gonna outright say it. All right. I think The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is the worst 3D Zelda game.
That's insane.
Why is that insane? I mean, like, let me be clear. I do like this game. I had a good time. The experience playing it was a positive one, but I think, like, compared to the rest of the franchise, it dips in points that are frankly like lows that are unacceptable, and I don't think we've ever had that happen before.
What? Okay. What's unacceptable aside from the frame rate?
That's the big thing. That like what happened? Never in the franchise. I think have I seen a single digit frames.
Someone from Game Freak just walked by the office while they were working on it.
I got a few optimization ideas. Let's talk about trees. It is like it's trees, it's rain, and it's lightning that does it, right?
Yeah.
All of which occur in the Sidon like Sora quest.
I think the big thing is that like it's mostly docked that runs into issues. Because when I was playing handheld, I played it mostly handheld, and I didn't run into any issues.
I ran into issues. Admittedly, I was playing this day one, and there might be like some hotter optimization patches.
I mean, I was also.
Oh yeah, that's true. We're
playing it next to each other.
That's right. That's right. We were having a good time. But what the fuck, man? When first off, Sidon is great. I love him. He's like Kamina, but a fish, so that's not the problem. But when he comes in, I don't think it's scripted to necessarily always be raining when you encounter him. I think that just might have been like the consequences of like when I got there.
I think it is because the Zora's domain is raining always until you defeat the divine.
That's true. I think this isn't even at Zora's domain. I think this is just like a river approaching it at first when he's like, "Hey, my guy, follow me. You're doing great, bro."
I don't know if that's.
I'm not sure.
To always be raining.
I'm not sure. But when I got there, it was raining and it was thundering and it was having a hard time there. You know. There are plenty of other Switch games that run just fine and have like way crazier effects going on. I'm looking at Mario Odyssey specifically and Mario Kart 8, but they're not necessarily open world games. I understand this was a compromise that was made there, but I think that's unacceptable. And the Kokiri Forest is also like just like a death zone. I don't know what's going on there.
It does suck really bad that one of the worst moments for frame rate is one of the most
like
emotional,
pivotal,
like the height
pulling out of the Master Sword. You'd think that's a scene that you'd like optimize out the ass, right? That's not what happened here though. That's one of the rougher looking areas.
Yeah, that is. It's sad.
Yeah. Could you imagine if you were playing like Ocarina of Time and like Raru comes out and it's like Link, you're 7 years older. You ain't no boy no more. And then just like a photo slideshow just like started chugging. Not like a PowerPoint is better optimized, right? I'm not talking about like smooth transitions going in, just like fucking chugging. Like the N64 starts sweating. It's like it's just like
smoking.
we got some legal issues here. Like it's like running a mile. You know, I've been that kid in class. It's just over here like, you're gonna need to give me a second. You want me to do that? that doesn't come from zero effort. Give me a bit.
Yeah.
So from the get go, Breath of the Wild I think has the least consistent performance out of any other 3D Zelda game.
Are you willing to give it any leeway because of the development conditions that it was made under, where it did start for a different system and then was moved over?
No, I will not, because that's also happened to I think the previous 3 Zelda games. Skyward Sword did not.
Skyward Sword definitely not.
Twilight Princess definitely did though.
I don't think Wind Waker did.
I
think Wind Waker was always
didn't. Majora's Mask did though. Majora's Mask was like a 64 disc drive game at its earliest points. Also, fun fact, bit of trivia, a little unrelated to this, but both Majora's Mask and Animal Crossing are the result of the canceled development of Mother 3, because that game was intended to focus on like small towns and communities with like repeatable patterns, which is why you have like villagers with like life cycles in both of those games. Well, that's a little something for the noggin there.
Every game should have villagers with life cycles.
Every game should be filled with love and care and a consistent 30 frames per second. Like we were
60.
We were talking about that like a few episodes back, right? Like the fact that I'm like, you know what? I'm not even asking for 60 anymore. Just give me 30. And Breath of the Wild, I feel like, is the breaking point where I'm like, just like at least 30, my guy. Because like once you like hit under that like
not
that,
being able to hit 30 at 720p is kind of sad.
It's a hard sell for like a modern console, and I understand like this is like a bit of a unique modern console, but like you know we got like Ocarina and Majora's Mask running on the 3DS. That wasn't a hard sell for those games.
Yeah, but also like other modern consoles at the time were doing 4K 30.
That's true.
And
That's true.
the Switch couldn't even hit 720 30.
Like I think we see a lot of like modern games giving like the user control over render settings that like are kind of PC like in a way, so I can understand if like some players have apprehension to them, but I haven't seen those players. I think it's just like a net positive for everyone.
I think they're not actually PC like, because messing with PC settings is a game in and of itself.
That's true. Every time I launch Monster Hunter World, I'm not satisfied. I change the settings every time.
Yeah. It's really bad. If your graphic settings are just high frame rate or high fidelity, that's not at all.
Did you play Ratchet and Clank on the PS5?
I haven't yet. I haven't.
They're like that game gives the players options, but in a way that I like kind of don't understand, because it's like there's like a ray tracing mode that runs at 30. There's like a mode with some ray tracing that runs at 60, and then there's like a mode without that also runs at 60. And I'm like, there's just a right answer here. Like when you flip flop between like 30 and 60, you're like, one of these, like I guess I would have been fine if this was all I knew, but then like immediately toggling between 30 and 60, you're like, get that dog shit out of my eyes. I never want to see that again. Let's forget that was ever even an option.
Yeah.
I think like if you're like optimized at that point, I get it. Just give me like the best case scenario. But if you like Breath of the Wild has that situation where it's just like if like you would just like render at 720p the whole time and they'll let the user choose that, I would have done that, right? Other than like I think it has like a dynamic like 900p or 1080p when it's docked. Which I do not care for if it's gonna give me the photo slideshow mode. I do not need that in my life.
Yeah. So obviously, no one's gonna disagree that Breath of the Wild has performance issues.
Yeah.
It definitely does, and it depends on the person how much that impacts your enjoyment of the game.
Right.
I think I was largely able to have an enjoyable time with the game regardless of the frame issues, because I didn't run into too many issues in combat, really.
Yeah.
I also felt like it wasn't super action heavy where like dipping frame rate would like cost me a life, or like
that's true. That's
noticeably
true.
damage my experience.
I think they do happen in like somewhat safe areas.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true, because the side-on stuff you're getting like raided by dudes. And
there, yes, that is a good point. Is like sometimes when there's like lightning and there's like the Lysols and the rain and like throwing lightning boomerangs, like it does chuck. Like it does chuck.
Like that'll happen. And I think like the most egregious part is the Kokiri area, and I do think that's safe. But it's just like such a sinner. Like you just like pre-render the cutscene if you've got it, right?
Yeah.
Like heck, man. So many ways. So many. Put less leaves on the trees. Billboard them. I don't care what you gotta do. It's the fucking Master Sword scene. You get that shit right.
You have to.
You have.
But so aside from performance issues, which again we're not trying to just brush past it, but what else?
But there are other issues, right?
Yeah.
And like a lot of this is gonna like the crux of my argument is like a comparative to an extent, right? So I'm comparing this to like the other 3D games in the franchise. Notably, I'm not personally the craziest about the 2D games, so I'm gonna disregard those. And amongst disregarding those, I'm also gonna disregard Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Track, since they play more like 2D ones, so they are polygonal. So that's a little stipulation in my argument, I think.
Okay, hold on. I knew that we were just talking about 3D games.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you prefer the 3D games over the 2D games. I like that. That is wild to me.
Like by a dramatic margin.
Yeah,
it's not even. It can't even be like a nostalgia thing, because the first Zelda game that I ever played was Link's Awakening, and I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. But when I played Ocarina of Time, and admittedly I like played it in its heyday, it was like literally a life-changing experience for me. I feel the way about Ocarina of Time I think like many like 80s and 90s people feel about like Star Wars.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'd be interested if people agree with me or you on this. But like, I kind of prefer the 2D games. I feel like the 2D games generally are better. Like I'm thinking the setting aside Breath of the Wild,
okay,
because we'll get to that.
We'll
in a
get
second.
to this.
But like, I think the Zelda game that I thought was like the greatest that really got me into Zelda again was Link Between Worlds.
I don't
I thought that game
dislike
was
Legend too much.
amazing.
I definitely feel
Also, I
like
guess you're discarding that because that is also a
but like
3D
overhead
game. Yeah.
perspective polygonal gameplay. So like
Yeah.
I'm taking
Yeah.
that out of this running.
Obviously, the Link's Awakening remake as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we're just talking
I
about
think the Four Swords games, like some of them, because there's like
Yeah.
Triforce Heroes and like Four Swords Adventure on the GameCube. I think also have polygons in them.
Mhm.
If there's like a polygon king, who's real pissed about me taking this take, then just swap the take. Triforce Heroes is the worst one now. But Triforce Heroes is still a good time for what it is. So I'm not like mad at that game in any way.
I think one big thing that I would do to try and refute all of your arguments, but I guess maybe I'll let you make them first because you still haven't made
all right.
an
So
argument
here's the
against it.
situation. I'm gonna like give us like a bulleted list run through here.
Okay.
So Breath of the Wild has the worst combat. It's got the worst music. It's got the worst level design. It's got the fewest interesting items. And it's got the worst storytelling out of all the 3D games.
Okay, the first immediate thing that I want to challenge is the music point. I think that it is trying to do something really different with the music.
I agree.
And I think that if you just take the music like piece by piece, like in terms of like the actual musical pieces, then I think that you are missing the point of what they're doing with it. Because I think that the audio design and the sound design and all of that in Breath of the Wild is actually really, really well done to immerse you in the world.
I agree to an extent, right? Because I think there's like a lot of developer commentary about the idea of like this being like an open air game and they want like open air instruments, which is why we see like so much like Ghibli-esque like flute music running through this, right? Like I definitely think like the audio team like rewatched Princess Mononoke like 60 times and like got every like nugget of juice out of that. I don't know if nuggets have juice in this way, but they milk that nugget.
I've juiced them.
They're milking that nug. And what they got out of that nug was some good stuff. But it doesn't come up enough, right? Like if we're running through like the other games in the franchise, right? Like there's not enough bops. Like there are very few times that I'm driving my mobile and I'm like, let's play the Breath of the Wild soundtrack, right? There are moments in my life where like, let's say like,
is that the goal of a game soundtrack though, to be the most like you want to listen to it while driving?
Not necessarily. Like this game has other goals, right? And like, it does meet those goals, but I do prefer the music in the other games and think about those games way more as consequence. Like give me hum 5 Breath of the Wild original tracks for me. Hum them for me right now.
I mean, I can't.
You can't. You do that with Ocarina of Time. You're like, I fucking know like the like C-pad like notation for them. I can give you Saria's song. I can give you Dodongo's Cavern. I can give you like Ganon's theme. I can do That's a hot beat. That's hot beats. Breath of the Wild has music in it that I enjoy, but nowhere near like as repeatable.
I think
an experience
that I have a lot of respect for what Breath of the Wild is doing with its music, because I think that you can't just look at the individual pieces here. Like you have to look at the emotion and the immersion that they're trying to do with it. And the point of it is to get you in that feeling of like the wilderness, right? It's supposed to evoke this feeling like you are alone. There is like kind of this desolation. There's nothing around. There's also the way that they will have shrine music sound differently than the rest of the music. The way that like when you actually the music that plays when you fight a guardian, I wouldn't listen to that song casually.
It's very stressful,
but
it does its
also
job well, right?
that song is really, really, really good for doing what it's trying to do. And I think that that's just one example of a lot of stuff in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, but when we enter the dungeons, which are like insulting when compared to the rest of the franchise, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get an iconic like dungeon theme that correlates with that. I do think that that's just like straight negative. I think it makes the experience.
I will
way less
say
memorable.
that the dungeons were a disappointment for me.
It's real rough because like we discussed the idea that I have like a preference for 3D Zelda, right? The things that I usually want out of Zelda come from like the storytelling, the combat, and like the puzzle solving in the dungeons, and like the experience of like finding new and interesting items. All of these things, Breath of the Wild is particularly bad at. And to an extent, I respect the idea. I think there's like an Onuma interview, where he discusses like, Yeah, when we were like staffing for this game, we tried to get like people who were like into unconventional hobbies and not necessarily super familiar with the rest of the franchise. Like if someone came in and they said they were interested in like rock climbing and like motorcycling, that was like way more impactful than if someone said they played every other game in the series. And I get that they're
I'm here
distinctly
for
trying to
that.
give like a breath of fresh air to the thing. That's
Yeah.
the title of the dang game. But that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to prefer the other experiences that are there.
I think you're allowed to prefer the other experiences, but I think so this is where I'm gonna go. This is the crux of my argument here, is that I disagree that Breath of the Wild is in the same conversation as the rest of the 3D Zelda games. In a similar way that you can't just say that a game is polygonal and so it's the same thing, right? Like we're not talking about the 3DS Zelda games,
right,
because they're clearly something different,
right.
I think that Breath of the Wild makes so many drastic
Something
changes
different and better. We should know, because if we're talking with Ocarina and Majora's, just better. Sorry, folks. Keep going.
I think though that like if you were to play Ocarina of Time when it came out, that game is so drastically different from the other Zelda games to the point where it starts a new series almost.
I definitely think there's like a meaningful distinction between them, right? But like Ocarina of Time doesn't necessarily like betray the structure of the previous games, right? Like if you're comparing like Link to the Past to Ocarina, you still have like a dark world transition, and like the level design is similar enough. It just like truly embraces like what a third dimension has to offer. And I understand like maybe that was like a bit more like played by the time that we hit Breath of the Wild. In the same way that like you can like differentiate between like classic Sonic, Adventure Sonic, and like modern Sonic. Like this is like the first game like in a new style of game, right?
Yeah.
And I get that, but the other style of game is just a better game, I think.
I don't know that I agree with that, because I do agree that Breath of the Wild is drastically different from the series, but I think that it still holds what Zelda wants to be pretty true.
Yeah.
So like if you look at Zelda 1 and you look at Breath of the Wild, I can see a through line.
Like I can too.
You can see it pretty clearly.
Here's the thing. Zelda 1 is the actual worst Zelda game. So the fact that, at least in my mind, that this game is like trying to distinctly like recapture the magic of the experience that I like the least in the original. I think it succeeds, unfortunately.
But I mean, I think that's true of if you look at Breath of the Wild compared to any Zelda game, not just Zelda 1. Like I think if you okay, not Zelda 2 maybe, but
no, I would still say there's a little Zelda 2 in
there. Is a little Zelda 2, but I think we can just pretty quickly move past Zelda 2.
But it's certainly the most different.
Link to the Past, I think you can see Link to the Past in Breath of the Wild. In the exploration
there's sprinkles of it in there, right? But like I do feel like Ocarina to Link to the Past is just like a direct connection, right? And obviously like Majora's is like a recontextualization of the mechanics of Ocarina with a very different like tone and setting, right?
Yeah.
And Wind Waker is like this again, very different tone and setting. Zelda's one of those interesting franchises where like each iteration like really does like reinvent itself dramatically without necessarily like losing the core of its identity. And I think that's still more true than not of Breath of the Wild. But I think the things that like I come in expecting from a game are like distinctly lacking in Breath of the Wild. Like there's like a launch trailer for Breath of the Wild that I feel like downright betrayed by, right?
Well, let me ask though. Okay. So it's clear that you don't like the way that Zelda has gone with Breath of the Wild, right?
But it's not that I hate it, but it's more that I have a preference, right?
Is it just that you have a preference, or do you think that it's worse?
I do think that it's worse.
So
like
explain
it's not
to me something
similar from like the Arceus argument, right? That you presented before.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is how is Breath of the Wild so influential and so loved by so many people if it's worse? Like what are they missing? Like what's going on there?
What's going on is that I think like this did like draw in a newer generation of players that I don't think necessarily like value or have experienced the like previous highs of the franchise, right? They don't necessarily know what it's like to go between like a light world and dark world and find a unique item in every dungeon. They don't know that that's an experience that you were somewhat expected to have with the franchise before, right? And I think people coming in like far older players who like had like kind of dropped off after Zelda 1 found like a similar spark in here that like has since like rejuvenated like the lifeblood of like a few other franchises. And I do think like if we're comparing this to like other open world games, and this is like worlds better than like any like Ubisoft open world experience that we've come to expect. Like I think like Horizon Zero Dawn had it like kind of rough because it like launched like maybe like a week before Breath of the Wild, and then just kind of got like
it
blown
did get
out of the
shafted
water.
by that,
Like the textbook got rewritten as it like came to the final. I was like, well, fuck, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be suddenly underwhelming, but I was the hot shit a week ago. So Horizon, I'm sorry, you got a bad rap.
Yeah. Hey, but at least they got a sequel that everyone doesn't hate.
Yeah, I think again it's getting unfortunately a little blown out because Elden Ring happened, and I think
at what point is it their fault though? You know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah. Like if Senpai didn't notice you twice, maybe it's not Senpai.
Yeah,
right?
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice.
Fool me twice.
Maybe I should release in a different launch window.
Maybe.
Ding ding dings.
Oh no, I unlocked the secret, the Easter egg.
Yeah, I do think that there are issues with Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people who were giving it 10 out of 10 were actually smoking crack cocaine.
I certainly.
I think that's insane. But I think that you have to give it so much credit for what it is doing new and different, because I think that it does have lower lows.
Mm-hmm.
I will agree with that.
Like new unprecedented lows, I feel.
I think it has unprecedented highs also.
I mean, I don't think there's any one moment in Breath of the Wild that had me like so agape, like compared to like even like directly beforehand. There's storytelling moments in Skyward Sword that I think are like peak video game, and the like storytelling in Breath of the Wild is like so disconnected from itself and its setting.
Well, so I think this is where it shows like the differences between what you and I prefer in games. Mm-hmm. So the thing that I love in games is exploration, first and foremost.
Right.
Which obviously I'm gonna like this game.
I mean, like there's a lot of grass and trees for you to see, but like what if like there was like a cool like structured area that had like a bunch of nooks and crannies that you can get lost in? Maybe like you find a map as you're going on within there, you spend like an hour or two within that. Wouldn't that be more fun to explore?
You're describing Ganon's castle.
I am just
or Hyrule Castle.
Hyrule Castle does happen, and it is cool, right?
The
music kicks in. First off, you know it's cool because the music kicks in, and then there's level design, right?
Here's
and
the
then
thing,
you find like interesting items in there.
You're actually insane if you're going to say that Ganon or Zelda's castle, Hyrule Castle, whatever, is not the best Zelda dungeon.
No, it's not.
What is better than that?
In Skyward Sword. All right.
Okay,
massive Skyward Sword spoilers, by the way. If you haven't played it, I understand it's divisive. I do prefer it. We might get into this more later. But in Skyward Sword, there is a dungeon that's themed after a Buddhist parallel. Or parable, not parallel. But from the beginning, like we got this high concept area, right? Which features the best boss in the dungeon. You get a whip as an item, which like, motion control, you Indiana Jones a bastard. And you take things from him. But there's like this giant golden Buddhist statue that's like holding like a million scythes. And the way that you kill him is you rip his arms off his body. He does bleed. You take the giant swords that he's holding and you slash a cage that's like encasing his heart, and his heart bleeds out and dies. If you're running low on health, what you do is you steal one of his arms and you shatter a pillar, and the structure crumbles and you get health out of that. That's way better than anything in there. And to get to there to begin with, you have to sail through a desert. Like you have a boat in a desert, but you find these like time travel stones, right, that you put on the mast of your ship. And within like the bubble of the influence of the magic of those stones, this area used to be an ocean, right? Mm-hmm. So like while you're like the majority of the screen is sand, but within the like sphere of influence of this bubble is an ocean, and enemies will approach you. And as they get into the ocean, they will like come to life. If there was like a pile of bones, like from like the distance in the desert, as you get close to it, like a sea monster will come in, and then you'll sail away from it, and it'll die. And like that's not even the dungeon itself. That's just getting to the dungeon. We're already peaked, right? Once you're in the dungeon, there's like, do you know the tale of like the spider string? No. It shows up in Erased if you've watched Erased.
I have, but I don't remember this.
It's like the like moral of the story is like there's like a dude who's like in like Buddhist hell, right? Mm-hmm. And like he had like done like no kindnesses to anyone, but he like saved a spider one day. So there's like a single like thread of like a spider string that he tries to like climb up on, but then like everyone who he's ever wronged that's like also in hell like grabs him and tugs him down. So he can't like go back to the heavens. So this dungeon has like an upper layer and a lower layer that like you climb up and down from, and like undead enemies are just like chilling down in like the lower layer. So like every now and then you'll fall down and you'll have to like ascend back to Buddhist heaven. And the art direction during that is immaculate. It has unique music, I should also note. And you get a unique item, and you have the best boss fight in the franchise at that moment. How is that not better than Ganon's Castle, which ends with like an underwhelming like boar chase?
Okay, that does sound cool.
It's so cool.
And I do need to play.
You do need to play this. Everyone out there who's like turned off by the motion controls in Skyward Sword, I understand it's divisive. Give it a shot though. Don't just necessarily take anyone else's opinion for it without experiencing it yourself.
Yeah. Also, I'm just gonna say if you don't like motion controls because motion controls are bad, stop being a baby. Literally, you're being an infant child. All right.
There was a time where like dual analog was like the weird new control scheme, right? Yeah. And like people just kind of like toughed it up until they got used to it. And I think motion controls are in that same limbo.
People who played Splatoon and were like, "Oh, the gyro aiming is bad." You're dumb.
Yeah,
you're actively dumb.
Fucked.
Yeah,
that's just an objective improvement.
Gyro aiming is the best thing that's happened to modern controllers.
Yeah. Also, if you're like, I'm not sold on that opinion, play Sin and Punishment 2. That's the best shooting controls in any video game, period. Like, classically underrated game. That's what Star Fox Zero should have been, honestly. Sin and Punishment 2, maybe the GOAT. I don't know if there's an occasion to come back to this in a different discussion, because no one's played it. Yeah. But it's so good.
Maybe. But, so, I guess I should have clarified with Hyrule Castle. Mm-hmm. I was mostly talking about the level design of it.
Right.
Because again, I think of the main thing I think of is exploration,
right.
And the moment of when you see Hyrule Castle, it's there the whole game, right? It's always in the distance.
You have a landmark, right?
Yeah, it's very clearly there, and you know that you need to get to there,
right?
But how you approach it isn't always clear. But there's so many different ways you can actually get in there. Like there are different branching paths that depending on like different NPCs that you talk to, they will tell you different ways that you can go in. Yeah. There's one quest early on, or I guess it's not early on because it's not a linear game, but there's one quest you can get pretty early on where it's like, oh yeah, there's like really good armor and weapons inside of there. Here's a path you can take. You can just go in there, like get this guard armor. I'll give you a reward, and then you can go in, and it's like a little stealth thing where you try and sneak in, grab it, and sneak out.
You know, other games have done like stealth missions before that. Like I won't say that Ganon's Castle is bad, right?
Yeah.
But in like in Wind Waker, you have to like infiltrate like a fortress to save your sister, and it's pulling straight up Metal Gear mechanics. You've got to like destroy like spotlights and the like, and that stuff's pretty based. You get thrown in jail when you die. It's great.
No, I think stealth sections in every Zelda game are bad.
There's one in Ocarina that I'm not crazy about.
It's actively bad.
I think the Wind Waker one is notably great.
I haven't played that specific one. I guess I should out myself. I haven't actually played like a lot of 3D Zelda games. I'm a 2D Zelda guy. Like I just prefer 2D Zelda games.
Actually, that brings me back on something. You finish your thought.
Oh no, it's just like I've started most 3D Zelda games. I've played the beginning of Ocarina of Time. I've played the beginning of Twilight Princess. I've played like a bit of Wind Waker, not much. But like they don't hook me.
I do feel the opposite. Like in Like one of the major things that I prefer so much more about 3D Zelda than 2D Zelda is the difference in combat, right? I feel like combat in most 2D Zeldas feels like comparatively fairly limp because you're just kind of like poking out your hitbox and like jabbing people, and there's nothing innately wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's like so much more dramatic and dynamic in its presentation in 3D Zelda games. Like the first time that I played Twilight Princess, I distinctly went out of my way to like, once you get like better weapons, I decided that I wanted to play through the game as much as I could outside of like story context with the wooden sword, just so that fights would be longer, because I was having such a good time in fights.
That's
also like Wind Waker has like a rhythm based combat system, and that's great. Breath of the Wild has weapons that degrade, that disincentivize the combat. Notable step down.
I don't know. I still think that I think you're underselling the Breath of the Wild combat because it also rewards creativity in a lot of ways.
Like
There's a
the
lot
physics
of
engine going on there. Well, not the physics, the chemistry engine that they use is distinctly very cool.
There's a lot of like you can solve problems very creatively.
There's a lot of room
Breath
for,
of the Wild in ways that you cannot in other Zelda games.
This is true. This is
you
definitely
distinctly
true.
cannot. Like another thing is like Eventide or Eventide Island.
Yeah, that's probably peak Breath of the Wild. I'll be honest.
That's a moment that is not. You can't get anything close to that in other Zelda games. Like
I would say you could approach it. I don't think it reaches the same high, but you get like a private resort in Wind Waker at some point, and it hits some of the same energy. Not
I don't
exactly
know. I mean, I think some of this shit. Also, like the first time you found, think back on the first time you found a labyrinth in Breath of the Wild, before you even knew that labyrinths existed.
Like the Oz riddles.
Yeah, like the mazes.
Which mazes?
You know, there's the 3 different mazes where you can get the barbarian set from, scattered throughout the map.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember.
You know,
there's the one.
There's the one when you go to like Akala when you first meet the scientist person. If you look at the cliff outside of the cliff, there's in the water. There's just a floating square maze.
I don't think I did this.
There's also one in Hebra in the snow area. There's a maze, and there's one in the desert area. Did you not see the mazes?
I don't. Well,
did you get the barbarian set?
I did not. I definitely did not. I like when I played this game. Keep in mind, this is like very early in this game's life. There's no walkthroughs. Like you're flying by the seat of your pants. I came in and they're like, hey, you got to get these memories. So I'm like, okay, let's get the memories. And I just made a beeline for all of those, and then did the like divine beasts, and then went to the castle.
I think that you robbed yourself of an experience.
I might have like approached it like a Zelda game.
I think
which you can't fault me for it, but
I think I can.
Go for it.
I think that if you play through the Great Plateau and you don't realize that this is not a Zelda game, I think that is your problem. The Great Plateau is designed perfectly to tell you what type of a game this is.
And
it's a pretty good tutorial.
It's a pretty good tutorial.
It's an amazing tutorial.
It's
a perfect tutorial.
Well, no.
It's amazing. It's phenomenal.
It does teach you everything that you are expected to know by the end of the game. Right?
And
the fact that the end of the game can be right now if you feel so inclined.
Yeah.
Right?
Even just like when you get out of the Great Plateau, if you look, there's 2 different windows from that area, right? That light tower that you're in, it's like the Temple of Time or whatever, at the top of it. On the right, there's an open window with a little platform for you to jump off of, and it's pointed directly at the dueling peaks. Like it is framed perfectly in the window because that's where the designers want you to go. It's like, here's the easy path. Here's the way that you should be going, right?
That's fair.
The other one is pointed directly at Ganon's castle, and it's like a bit more crumbly. It's not like as clear that you're supposed to go through there, but you could. And right there, it's telling you without saying a single word, it's showing you the options of you can go out here and explore, or you could even just go straight to the castle.
That's pretty dang solid. I will not
There's
lie
shit
to
like that all over Breath of the Wild.
For those unaware, here's another little fun fact. The level design in Breath of the Wild is designed after Disney theme parks, with the idea of like the like Cinderella's castle like at the center and having like towers and landmarks in the distance. That like line of sight energy, they got that from Walt Disney World, brother. That's some good stuff.
I believe that. I'd never heard that before, but that does make sense. Because if you like the way that the game points you towards places without having quest markers telling you where to go, without like actively telling, there are quest markers. But also like it's best if you just kind of ignore them and just like look around and do whatever you want.
Like I understand like the game might be at its best if you're willing to let yourself get a little distracted, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm just kind of not that guy, right? Like, if the video game tells me, like, Hyrule is in danger, there is peril, there is some degree of urgency, get to it, I'm going to get to it. Right?
I mean, how urgent is it if you've been asleep for 100 years?
That's fair. But, you know, you don't want to prolong anyone's suffering, right? And I play
Zelda.
She
can put up with it.
I mean, I know, I understand it's a video game. I understand no one is literally suffering. But if I'm buying into the setting of this game, which I am, because I do enjoy the setting of this game, you know, I'm trying to not keep anyone like dangling for longer than they need to.
But so back to the labyrinths, though.
Yeah.
Those mazes are so cool.
Tell me about these.
They're
mazes.
sick. So okay, this is my experience the first time I found one.
Mhm.
There's like a main quest that takes you to go towards the scientists in
Mhm.
Akala, right? Do you
Yeah.
remember going there?
Yeah.
There's the skull area right like north of
Mhm.
that. But yeah, you see off to if you look over the cliff,
Mhm.
uh you see that there's just this square platform in the middle of the water.
Mhm.
And if you open up the map, what you can see is that it looks like a maze.
Okay.
And you can even see, like, looking over on it, that it looks a bit like a maze.
Mhm.
And so, what I think a lot of people did, and what I did, is I'm like, can I get there? Can I glide there? You jump off the cliff, you glide there, you get to that
Mhm.
location. You probably need like a bit of stamina or like food to get there, but you can
Mhm.
get there. And it's just a labyrinth with guardians walking around in
I
it.
understand perhaps the presence of the maze and getting to it is its own reward. But let me ask you this:
Yeah.
what do you get after you beat this maze, this chunk of this maze?
You get there are 3 different mazes,
Mhm.
and they each give you a part of the barbarian set, which is arguably the best armor in the game
Is it
because it
just a
increases your
numerical
attack.
difference?
I mean,
Does it allow unique functionality?
yes. So it I mean, everything is just a numerical difference at the
That's the
end of the day.
problem. That's the
But like,
problem.
no, I mean just like in terms of
I mean, like,
video
there's like
games,
flame swords and like
right?
staffs that you get, right? And those
Yeah.
like behave differently.
But what I mean, I think that for me, I'm a very aesthetics focused person. I like playing dress up in video games.
That's true.
For
That's true.
me, just getting a new outfit that looks different is a reward, even if it doesn't change stats at all.
That doesn't do it for me, and let me tell you why that doesn't do it for me.
But
Well,
it does
finish your thought.
it
I'll
does
come back.
also the set does increase your attack damage.
Okay.
And it is like weaker armor than some of the other stuff you have that increases your attack damage.
Mhm.
It might, when fully upgraded, it might do different things. Did you fully upgrade armor, by the way?
Probably not.
Because
Honestly,
you
knowing
said
myself.
that there aren't differences, everything's numerical differences. That's
not
true.
everything. There are things that are numerical differences, and things that are not. And I'm saying
most
like the
stuff
things that
will
are
give
not,
you something if you fully max it out.
What do you get out of it? Give me a few.
I
Examples.
forget that one specifically. The like
because give me a few examples, and I'll tell you some of the other items that you get in 3D Zelda games, and we'll compare the two.
Well, I mean, you're obviously gonna win that.
Yeah, because one of them's just better, isn't it?
I think that the games are trying to do different things, though.
They are,
and you
but
also
how much better would it be if you had a grapple hook attached to your arm? How much better would it be if you had 2 grapple hooks that are attached to your arm so that you could climb the walls like Spider-Man? Because let me tell you, that does happen. And it is as rad as it sounds. You fight a dragon like Spider-Man.
I mean, I think
How many
that
dragons
is
do you
rad.
fight?
One.
Not enough. Not enough.
But you also see 2 other ones.
All right, let me tell you about.
Dude, did you go to the mountain range where corrupted dragon?
I did.
That was sick
distinctly
as hell.
like seeing the dragons fly overhead.
That was sick.
That is magic. That's that good secret sauce. I won't fight that. But let me tell you about in Twilight Princess, which is not necessarily my favorite 3D Zelda. I think I'm not crazy about the art style. I think it hasn't aged the greatest and it's a little muddy. But there are some crazy items that you get in that game. You fight like a zombie dragon at one point. What item do you think would be appropriate for fighting a zombie dragon? Just guess. Like spitball some ideas.
Flamethrower.
No. You get a Beyblade. You get like a giant.
Oh, is that
Beyblade.
where you get the?
Yeah. You get a Beyblade that like attaches onto like rails of this pillar, and the skull of this dragon's like flying around shooting fireballs on you while you're like hopping tracks on your Beyblade. And that's the good stuff. These are the differences of kind regarding items that I'm looking for. Like to get something that's like aesthetically different, maybe you get like a passive ability. That's not bad per se, but to compare that to say magnetic boots or a ball and a chain or hook shots or double hook shots.
How frequently in 3D Zelda games though do the items get used outside of the dungeon you find them in?
Depends on the item. I would say like Twilight Princess in specific probably has the biggest problem where there are like some like unique items.
I think a lot of Zelda games, and again, I haven't played through all of the 3D games, so I don't know for sure if this is the case.
Like,
in them, but
it's not unfair to say like that is a thing.
You typically will get an item, you'll use it in the dungeon, and you might use it a couple times in other dungeons or to find a hidden item, but it largely doesn't do anything else.
That doesn't.
Whereas in Breath of the Wild,
other things have some utility still. Like there are still other tracks that you can put said Beyblade on, and you can use it in battle too. So in that sense, I don't think it's that much different than like an item that you might find in Breath of the Wild that like maybe it's not like necessarily better, but it has points that it's useful. I don't think this is too much of a downgrade from that, and it's so much more of an upgrade for the specific scenarios that call for it.
I mean, I think I do. This is probably blasphemous, but if I had to pick, I would prefer Breath of the Wild's item system, where you get those 4 things at the beginning. What are they called? The Sheikah Slate items or whatever.
The stasis like gems.
Yeah,
well,
like
stasis is just
stasis.
Well,
but like if you getting those 4 and having them for the whole game and having them be useful in multiple different ways that you can creatively combine them to do different things, that shit's sick.
That's pretty sick.
That shit is like really awesome.
That's a thing that they took away from A Link Between Worlds. Like that was kind of like a dry run for that idea.
Yeah.
But it like I will say like stasis is probably cooler than any other Zelda item ever, right? I'll give it that. I think that that is the
stasis
most practical like Zelda power up that you're ever gonna get.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of them are pretty sick though.
They're
I think
all pretty sick.
Cryonis or whatever is kind of sleeper. Like that's not.
It's a little more situational, right?
Yeah, it's not
like
as sick as the other
utility,
ones.
But it like of the others, you know, a little more limited. But that said, there's just so many more dang others. We haven't talked about like Majora's Mask like items. Become a Zora is an item, right? Become a Goron is an item. Become a Deku Scrub is an item. And all of those just have uniquely different movesets to them too. So I don't think that's too far a cry from like the abilities that you get in Breath of the Wild. But you still get additional sick items as you go there too.
I think though that where I give Breath of the Wild so much more credit, and this is where I think a lot of people give it a lot more credit, is that it is not an incremental upgrade. I would say, well, keep going. Finish like, I would say that most 3D Zelda games are incremental upgrades of Ocarina of Time.
Okay. I thought you were saying like specifically items, right? And I would
no,
argue the exact
I mean, like the game itself, right? Like I do think Majora's Mask is different.
Majora's Mask is very different. I think Wind Waker's different, and like I think
Wind Waker's different in a bad way.
What's wrong with Wind Waker?
The ocean. The thing that makes it different is the worst part.
The ocean isn't great. The art style, obviously.
Do you know what game just does the Wind Waker ocean better?
Tell me.
I mean, Phantom Hourglass.
It does.
Phantom Hourglass is great. Anyone
that
tells you that Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks are bad, they're dumb. All right, play the games. If you don't like them, that's whatever. You don't have to like them. But there's really cool shit in those games,
there, right?
There's some sick shit.
It's pretty inventive. It's got the single best Zelda puzzle in the franchise. I'll say in Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah.
If you boys on the video feed know what I'm talking about, if this motion means anything to you, then you already know.
Yeah.
If you don't know about this shit, you gotta learn about this shit. That shit is wild.
It's wild.
It's so good.
It's insane. But so like I would say that I don't think that Twilight Princess does anything crazy new. The crazy new thing that it does is
that it goes back to a previous style.
I mean, but also that it's just it's got Wolf Link, which is lame.
Let's be fair. You turn into a wolf in that game, right? And so
do you know what else game you turn into a wolf?
Okami. The best Zelda game, Okami.
Sonic Unleashed.
That's true.
Turning into a wolf ain't so good.
It can be good. But like the metrics that like differentiate any other Zelda game would just justify another franchise if another developer was making them, right? That's the way I feel, at least. Wind Waker's like aesthetic and its like differences in combat and structure are so like crazily different from Ocarina that anyone else I think would put
I think if you look at the differences between Ocarina and Wind Waker compared to the differences between Breath of the Wild and any other Zelda game, it's night and day. Yeah. Like Breath of the Wild makes such huge, substantial changes. It completely mixes everything up. Right. And I think that you aren't giving that enough credit I agree with this, right? I value innovation in video games above anything else.
Right.
I think doing something new is better than doing something good, which I know might be a dumb thing, but I'm just so sick of like us doing the same shit all the time. I'm tired of incremental updates. I agree
with this in spirit, right? But I don't necessarily think any Zelda game just plays the incremental upgrade path. Right?
I'm going to say it right now, all right? I'm going to go on record. Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be the best Zelda game, period. I'm saying that right now. And
remember this date, brothers.
Yeah, you can honestly clip this shit. All right, tweet it at me afterwards.
Yeah. Only time will tell.
Yeah, but I know that I'm correct.
I would love for you to be right.
Because what's happening is...
I think we might see like a merging of the two styles.
Think about, do you prefer Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time, right?
I don't know. Depends on the day of the week, honestly.
Okay.
I like Ocarina of the Time. Like Ocarina of Time is a spiritual experience for me, as is Majora's Mask. But they're both...
If you remove all of your personality from the judgment and you look at them as video games.
Straight mechanically,
yeah,
I prefer Ocarina.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought most people preferred Majora's.
They're very hard to compare because like... you don't like form changes are such a big thing in Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask has like a lot less content. It's fair. Very different content. It's they're one of them is Animal Crossing on the side, right?
I think a better example would be than like Zelda 1 to Link to the Past.
Yeah, Zelda 1 to Link to the
Past.
Where
they are direct sequels. Like they are very clear. I mean, we're skipping Zelda 2.
Yeah.
But like
which is obviously very different.
they are directly building off of each other, and Link to the Past just improves everything.
Yeah,
everything about it.
I think Link to the Past is straight up great over Zelda 1.
Like I know it's cool to hate Nintendo. I have a lot of issues with how they do things.
It's fun to get frustrated from time to time, right?
But I think that in terms of the games that they release, they knock it out of the park. Like they know what they're doing when they make video games.
It's so easy to like look at like the track record and be like, this might be the most reliable studio of all.
Yeah, like I can't imagine a world where Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be worse. Here's the way that it would be worse, all right? Is if it released within a couple of years. Like if it released in 2019 or 2020,
okay,
right?
I got you.
So like they've been giving it a lot of time. They are not trying to just rush out the next game.
Right.
They even delayed it. Like they're clearly trying to make something great. They're putting in a similar amount of time that they put into Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
right.
Which is
and
crazy.
You have to consider that they're not building a new engine. They're able to reuse a lot of assets.
They do this every dang time though. Like I do believe this game is going to launch and there's going to be another hardware SKU that correlates with it, right? I don't like which has happened for Twilight Princess and which has happened for Breath of the Wild itself, right? I think we'll end up in the same.
That could impact performance issues for sure, but I don't think it's going to change the quality of the game. That's the actual design and level design and all of those aspects of it. I think that it's going to be an improvement in every regard because I trust that the developers know what they messed up on.
On that note, can we pour something out for like the cut features in Breath of the Wild that were like gamepad associated? Because like Wind Waker HD was like a dry run for some of the UI stuff that was going to be in Breath of the Wild, and like being able to just like in the middle of your inventory, not need to pause the game. Like you probably could have cooked from your inventory. I believe you probably could have swapped armor without pausing. That would have been great. But I mean, we can't have it all, right? Compromises were made to maintain a single screen experience.
Do you know, this is going to sound wild, but do you know what sold me on the Wii U? And when I say that, I didn't actually buy one, so nothing sold me on the Wii U. But
tell me what considered selling you on the Wii U.
Zombie U.
Zombie U is like such an interesting argument.
Because like when you see that for people who don't know, like I was watching the trailers and shit when the Wii U was announced, and I saw them announce Zombie U. And what was really hooked me about it was that your backpack there wasn't a pause menu. Your backpack was on the lower screen. So if you needed to change weapons, if you needed to grab anything, if you needed to do anything in your inventory, you had to actively look down in your backpack while keeping an eye on the screen to see if something was attacking you. And that's a sick as hell idea.
That's good stuff. I will say it was probably a little telling of like some of the greater problems with the Wii U. That was the thing, because essentially what that game is doing is it's distracting you from the content on the primary screen, and it's using that in a smart way. But it probably was like a harbinger of the end times to be like, this is going to be a problem for every other game.
Yeah. I mean, I think the real downfall with the Wii U was obviously just that it's difficult to develop for because you can't just port the game. That's right. Yeah. Like you have to account for the fact that there's a screen there. Yeah. Like, you could just leave it at blank the whole time or just mirror them.
Yeah, like both Mario Kart 8 and like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Some of the better games on the console don't do anything. Mario Kart gives you a horn. And Donkey Kong Country gives you a literal black screen. And it is what it is. There are good use of the Wii U touchscreen. I do believe Zelda would have benefited from it greatly, but we don't get to live in that universe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we've exhausted the topic. I don't know if I have any other arguments to be made. I think at this point it's up to our viewers. Who do you agree with here?
Let us know. Let us know.
This might be the first time someone agrees with
so.
me.
Maybe I should have been in the red corner. Maybe red is for aggressor. I don't know.
Shit. It's too late now.
It's too late. I'm comfy with blue.
I'm still the villain. At the end of the day, I think
Dylan the villain.
People are just going to hear me say shit and they're just going to be like, look, I know that he's right, but this guy's such a fucking idiot. I can't agree with him. I can't agree with him.
I'm a bit of the weird one in this case, but if you believe in your heart that like the structure of the game has not necessarily changed for the better, let me know that. I'll be there. You put something in the comments. There have been people in the comments, and we engage with them very regularly. So if you want to do that in a TikTok or a YouTube or whatever place you find us, let us know. We'll engage.
Yeah, mostly you, because people just hate me in the comments, and I think of replying, but I'm just you know what? I'll let Ralph take this one.
With a quick fuck you. What you gotta do?
If you hate Ocarina of Time and all good video games, then give us a like. All right, agree with me.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild's great. Breath of the Wild 2, greatest game ever made.
It's pretty good.
Honestly, that's it. Thanks for watching.
All right, bye.